All right, good afternoon, everybody. Man, I always feel, I was looking at the participants, and hopefully some of you guys are preparing for your finals, and this is, a refresher for 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 what's to come next week. If you haven't, I was a nice professor, and I let my students start their finals this week. But anyways, that's just me. Anywho, so again, my name is Chris Salas. I'm a assistant professor of social work at here at EPCC Valle Verde campus. I also have the privilege of serving as the chair of the EPCC Mental Health Committee. And I really enjoy the collaboration that we've had here with Tejano Virtual Events. And I would like to start off with first and foremost thanking TVE and staff for allowing us this space to, bring awareness and to sometimes, hopefully, offer some little nuggets of information to our students, faculty, and staff on ways that things can be done better, reframing things here and there. But as always, I leave it with a caveat of whatever we, or at least whatever I say, is not the it all end all. And there are various options and alternatives. And the best thing, especially when it comes to today's topic, that being test anxiety and preparing and reducing anxiety as you guys get ready for finals, is, the best thing is whatever works for you. But like I said, first and foremost, a huge thank you for allowing us the space. Goes out to the Tejano Virtual Events staff, and for allowing me to, keep on yapping my mouth every once in a while here with them, and for really fostering this relationship between the Mental Health Committee and Tejano Virtual Events, and also obviously my fellow members of the Mental Health Committee for entrusting that I bring good mojo from the committee to the rest of EPCC. All right. So if you've been to any of my presentations before, if you've had the pleasure of having me in class, just kidding. I don't like doing like learning outcomes. I don't like doing like, oh, the roadmap. Now I call them my spoilers, because you get to see what the presentation's about from the beginning and know whether it's going to be good or bad before we even get started. So today we're going to talk a little briefly as to what anxiety is, what may cause test anxiety, the manifestation of test anxiety. And we'll see that there are various ways that it can manifest. In other words, how it can present itself, how it can show up in people, and the ways that it can interfere with your daily life, both physically and cognitively, the way you think, the way you process things. And last but not least, the meat and potatoes, how one can reduce test anxiety. So I'm sure that's what everybody is here for. So let's get started. So, what is anxiety? Before we even dive into that, I really want to, and again, I'm sure if you've been to any of my presentations before, I always start off with this. And we talk about the difference between mental health and mental illness. Now, there is a difference, and especially when talking about anxiety and test anxiety, this is something that I really want to hammer home. When we talk about mental health, these are issues, the daily issues that can cause stress, that can cause anxiety. They kind of throw you off your norm, right? This could be that wrench that's thrown into your daily life. And this can look different for different people. Let's say in the morning, today, you're driving on your way to school, you're driving on your way to work, and someone cuts you off. And you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm moving to this and da 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 da. Some people, that's the end of it, right? Okay, whatever. You keep on trucking. Cool. Go about your day. No harm, no foul. Well, for other individuals, that someone cutting them off could be that first domino that leads to other things, right? And it might be, you kind of have this, you get there and all of a sudden your parking is too far. And so that even adds to it. And then you notice that, oh, you know what, CAS was canceled after all, so I don't even have to be here. And it's just domino after domino after domino. But that first domino being cut off really set the mood for the rest of the day. And so it might affect you for a couple of hours. For some individuals, that could be the entire day. For others, that could be the weekend. For others, that could be the next couple of weeks. And so, in essence, that's what really differentiates between mental health and mental illness. Mental health are things that, as you can see here, are things that we can manage on ourselves, things that we have the coping skills for, things that you get cut off, you go like, you vent, poof, you're good, awesome, I managed it, I controlled it, I'm good to go. But mental illness, well, mental illness is something that is diagnosable, something that we have a list. And I always keep on forgetting. I know I have 3 copies of that thing. I call it my purple Bible, which is the DSM-5 or Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Health, which gives us all the criteria, all the symptoms for every mental health condition diagnosable. Anyways, for a mental illness, there's certain criteria, certain symptoms that have to be present and an individual has to meet in order to be diagnosed. So one of those is time. There's a time frame. For anxiety, you have to have that persistent worry, the persistent fear of something happening for at least 6 months. And it has to be every day, almost every day. Obviously, there's more to it, but I'm not going to get into that. That's not the point of today. Whereas things like test anxiety, can it become that mental health issue of I get anxious when I take a test, I get anxious when this happens? Can that in essence become a mental illness? Definitely. But can a mental illness, is there, retroactive, can it go back to mental health? Well, once you're diagnosed with it, but again, that's a whole different story, not what we're here for. So what is test anxiety? Well, that's when you have this uncanny fear, this uncanny worry that the result of a test is going to be negative or not what you expect. Now, there are various reasons for that, right? But we'll get into that. And so this fear and this worry can stem from or can originate from the day of the test or days leading up to the test, and culminating on, poof, you get the test, or if it's online, you sit down, you click that button that says start, begin the test. Oh, you start breathing harder. Your heart starts beating harder. But again, we'll get into those manifestations here in a bit. So in essence, what I really want to hammer home is that there is a difference between mental health and mental illness. Mental health is our daily stressors, things that we deal with on a daily basis, and things that we have the skills, we have the know-how, we are able to control them, and we are able to get through them. Whereas a mental illness, there are symptoms, there are criteria that has to be made and is diagnosed by a mental health professional. So I know sometimes these 2 terms or these 2 phrases are used intermittently by people, like, oh, the mental health condition of that individual. No, mental health are daily issues that we encounter, things that we process, things that we deal with on a daily basis. Mental health or mental illness, my apologies, is a much more chronic condition, something that is diagnosable, something that, as I tell my students, you label somebody with, and that's what it is. We label individuals with that disorder or that illness. But I digress. So what may cause test anxiety? Well, let's look at 5 major points. The first and foremost is the fear of failure. And this can stem by our conscious or subconscious or belief that whatever our grade is in an exam or whatever score we get will equal, or we put some value to that as to our own value. That the A is my A, it's me, I'm that A. And if I don't get an A, then I'm not A material, right? If I don't get that 100, if I don't get that good grade, then I'm not good enough. And so that test anxiety can come from that we equate whatever our score is, whatever our final grade, our score is going to some way, shape, or form interpret who we are as individuals, what our intrinsic value is. And it's not the case. The other one, and come on, I'll be honest, I do this one myself too. And, as a professor, we do it all the time. We might not tell you, but lack of preparation. What does that mean? You might procrastinate. Again, let's be honest. Sometimes you're like, I'll study next. I got this. It's all right. I'll study later. I'll study later. Next thing you know, later is an hour from now, and your exam is up, and you haven't studied. And so guess what? That oh crap moment happens, right? Like right here. This is from the good old Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Pre-slap. Anyways, so that lack of preparation can also cause anxiety, because we start having those thoughts of, I'm not ready. I'm not, oh my God, I just, you know what? I didn't study as much as I should have. I didn't get through everything that I should have studied. And so all these negative thoughts start to race through our mind of, again, the oh crap moment. What about poor testing history? Let's just say, unfortunately, there comes a time when you might not be a good test taker, right? And you might do great on assignments, and you know the material and you know the concepts and everything, but maybe tests aren't your thing. And so you have this history of not doing well on exams. And so when you get to an exam, all these his past thoughts start to come back. And you're like, oh man, here's another test. Oh, okay. What? Oh, you know what? I know I'm going to fail. I haven't done well. I'm just not going to. Here comes another C. Here comes another D. Oh well. I just hope they got special or extra credit later on this semester. Oh crap, it's the final. There is no extra credit. So you see how everything starts to stack up, right? Next one is a high pressure. This can be pressure that is put on ourselves, pressure that can be put on by others. So let me give you this example. What if you say, well, I need a 90 on my test for me to get an A this semester. And so you start putting that pressure of, I need to reach this goal. I need to reach this baseline. I need to reach this to get this. So we start putting pressure on ourselves. But what if that pressure comes from the outside though? What if now we're being pressured that, as the old adage says, C's get degrees, right? Well, that doesn't fly for my family. That doesn't fly for my mom. That doesn't fly for my dad. I need to get A's. Or heck, that doesn't fly for me. As the next one would say, that perfectionists, right? I need to, because I'm putting it on myself that I need to do good. Not only good, I need to do great. Not only great, I got to be perfect. Therefore, I'm putting the pressure on myself. However, that pressure could come from someone else, from family members, from even competition amongst other colleagues, other friends. So again, are these the only causes of test anxiety? Heck no. But I'm sure that you all, at some point or another, have fallen into any of these. Again, I can attest to the second one, right? Even the fear of failure, like, oh man, that professor really, I'm always in class, I'm like, how could I get a bad grade in that class? I know the professor always thinks so highly of me or this, and oh man, I just look so bad in front of Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so or Dr. So-and-so. Oh, that can also be a way of thinking of the fear of failure, that you might be embarrassed, that you might be letting somebody down because of how you did on your exam, how you did overall. Okay, so let's look at some of the ways that test anxiety can manifest and the things that it can affect or cause. Physically, this can be seen as headaches, nausea, lightheadedness, excessive sweating, right? We see that. People maybe sometimes even stick napkins in their pockets because they want to try their hands off. Uh, Rapid heartbeat, right? Some people say that whenever they feel anxiety, they feel like their heart is going to jump out of their chest. Some people can even state that they feel their heart beating. They can feel it on their chest, or they can even just feel the palpitations through their extremities, their hands. They feel that like it's just beating, and they can feel the beats. Feeling faint, the opposite, where you feel like I need to breathe. The heavy breathing that feels like, oh my God, I need to sit down. I need to calm down. Now, that in itself can sometimes lead to panic attacks. Now, the interesting is that when we start talking about anxiety, in some cases, in some cultures, there are things called like ataque de nervios, right? Like a nerve attack in Hispanic culture. Me dio un ataque, me dio un pánico. I got like a panic attack. I got the nerve attack. And so even within the culture, or certain cultures, especially our culture here in El Paso, in our borderland community, that's something that is, I don't want to say that it's normalized, but it's something that definitely is kind of generalized, that everybody knows what that looks like. Everybody has in some way, shape, or form heard of what an ataque de nervios is, right? Whereas other parts of the country would be like, an attack of nerves? What the heck does that mean? Like, does it attacks your nerve? Like, it just, I know it makes no sense to us, that people might not understand, but again, it's a culture thing. So that in itself can also help, not only in understanding what people are dealing with, us as faculty members, as staff members, even as classmates. If someone's like, and you're like, man, it's just está dando un ataque. You're getting an attack. You're cool. Just calm down. And so even that can help us try and calm down, try and relax. Now, in some instances, these physical manifestations can also appear as irritability or even anger. So irritability is when that individual, maybe you, gets upset at the smallest of things. Or anger, just full-fledged anger. Now, some people will be like, well, why is that? Why do you get irritable? Why do you get angry if you're having anxiety? Well, think about it. Look at all the things that could potentially happen. If you're breathing hard, your heart is palpitating and it's racing, and you might have a headache. Just think of headaches in general. If people come and try to bother you, try to ask if you're okay, everything's like, I'm okay, just let me go, just calm down, all right, and you want your space. And so even when people are trying to assist you, trying to help you, or if you're in an exam and all this is happening, and then you look at the question, and the question doesn't make sense because you're so entrenched in trying to calm yourself down, then we can see how this can be twisted, or not twisted, I guess, viewed as irritability or even anger. What about how we think? Well, the cognitive effects of anxiety could be feeling of stress. Well, duh, right? You feel stress, obviously. You feel fear. We just talked about it, the fear of failure, the fear of not knowing what is going on in the exam, the fear of, I'm not going to do what I thought I was going to do. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'm going to let people down. Even feeling disappointment. It could be disappointment on yourself. Like, I know I could have done better, man. If only I could have. And we start going down that rabbit hole of the what ifs. Helplessness. There's nothing as hard as sitting down on the test, and even because of the negative thoughts that you might be having, the negative perception and thoughts of like, I'm not going to do good. This is going to, oh my God, the consequences. If I don't get this, if I don't get that 90, I'm not going to get that A. If I don't get that A, what am I going to tell my mom and my dad? And what happens in this? And then my GPA is going to drop, and then my scholarship, and then when I transfer, and you just start going further and further and further into those thoughts. Excuse me. The last two kind of coincide with each other. Your mind going blank and problems with concentration. Well, if your mind is so busy worrying and thinking and fearing of what could happen, and now that I'm here, now that the test is here, and now that your mind is so worried about that, well, there's no room for other things. So you can concentrate on the task at hand. And there's times where you just poof, your mind goes blank. How many times have we sat down for, staff and faculty, a meeting? Even if you're working as students, if you're working and you go to a meeting and you go like, I just completely blanked out. It's happened, and I think it's happened in actually one of my presentations, maybe not with TBE, but sometimes I'll be talking or I'll be answering a question and my mind just goes, boop, and I lose my train of thought. And I'll be like, what was the question again? Or in class, I'll be thinking about so many other things, and then when a question is asked, well, I'm like, whoa, hold on, that's a good question. And so when our mind is so busy with everything else, in this case, the fear and the worry and the concern of the possibilities that could happen, it can't concentrate on what we have to do right here and then. And we also might just completely forget. You open the test, you see the first question, and poof, everything that you thought you knew just went out the window, right? Feels like it went in one ear and out the other. Nothing stuck. So, whoops. We've gotten to what is test anxiety, what is anxiety in general, how test anxiety can manifest or present itself in us physically and cognitively, how we think. So now let's just talk about, because I also want to allow some time at the end to really talk about, well, how can this look, or even answer some questions individually from you all. But let's look at least three different portions. So we'll look at prior to the exam, leading up to it, right before the exam, so potentially the day of, and then during the exam. Once you're sitting down, either if it's a virtual and online class and you're sitting right in front of your laptop or your computer, your phone, or you're in person and you're in your desk or in the computer lab or wherever, and the test is about to be administered. So what about prior to the exam? Well, remember, we talked about one of the causes potentially being lack of being prepared. So how can we combat that? Well, be prepared. Well, thanks, Captain Obvious, right? But what does that look like? Well, this can mean everything from making sure you attend classes, making sure you take your notes and take notes well. If you did miss a class and your professor offers or has the videos of it, especially right now that we're still doing some hybrid and online classes, take the time to review the video. Reach out to a classmate. Reach out to your faculty member. I tell my students, if I don't hear from you, I'm just going to believe you weren't here, and that's it. I don't know what happened. I'm not trying to be metiche. I'm not trying to be nosy. It's just, to me, you just weren't in class, and that's it. Now, if you reach out and say, hey, Mr. does this and this happen? Hey, no problem. Here, this is what we went through. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll talk about it maybe before class. Maybe we'll set up some time after or before. We got it. It's going to be cool. Don't worry about it. But again, communication between you and your faculty member. That's probably one of the things that is the hardest thing for some students to do. But honestly, one of the easiest and one of the best ways that you can make sure that you're on track and staying on track. Sorry. Study effectively. So as a faculty member, I try to tell my students not exactly what's going to be in the exam, but I hint to, hey guys, next exam is going to cover sections da 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 da, and it's going to emphasize this and this and that. So when my students, at least I hope, when they go and study for the exam, for the unit exam or whatever we want to call it, I would hope that they, listen to what I said, because in essence, I don't do exams to try and trick people, as I think none of the faculty that work for APCC or ever try to do that. That's not our aim. We want to make sure that in an exam, we want to make sure that you understood the material. So when you go out there, you actually know what you're talking about. So be effective with your studying. If there's a concept, if there's a topic, if there's something that you really, really, really don't understand, that's probably the topic in the area that you want to concentrate and spend the most time on. Not saying that you should be comfortable and be like, I kind of know that one, I'm good. But that's kind of the one where you maybe want to touch base on it every other day, once in the next 2-3 days, where you just go like, what's it? Oh, that's right, all right. Whereas something you still have no idea what it is, talk to a classmate, talk to your faculty member. Nowadays, with our phones and everything, where we have information at our fingertips, Google it. Now, be careful, because you don't want to go to like Joe's information corner of nowhere, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And so just be mindful and be careful of where you get your information. But, do a little digging on your own. Take care of yourself. What does that mean? Well, self-care. Believe me, in my profession of social work, we talk about that on almost a daily basis in all of my classes all the time. Because the work that my students eventually will do puts a heavy burden on them. Well, not necessarily physically, but emotionally and cognitively. Now, if you take care of yourself, and by this I mean your body, mind, and your soul. Actually, we just did a TVE presentation about 2 months ago, I think in February, about staying strong and not just mentally, physically, but overall strong. And so that's something that we talked about it's not just the catchphrase, right? Some people are like, oh yeah, self-care, yeah, okay, whatever. No, guys, it really means something. Everything from your body, from your mind, from your soul, our body is a machine, right? Even though some people are like, I'm not a machine, I can't do. It is. Whatever you put into it is whatever you're going to get out. So if you could put good food into your system, you fuel it up with premium stuff, you're going to get some good mileage out of it. If you rest it, if you take care of it, right? I'm not saying go do a spa day every weekend or stuff like that, but if you take care of your body, if you get rest, if you exercise, you get good food, I splurged on Whataburger yesterday. Was that the best? No, but damn was it good. Anyways, your soul, for some people that means spending time with families. For some people that means I need my me time. For some people that means sitting down and reading a book that I like. Again, what you put into your body is going to be reciprocated as to what it puts out. So if you're not doing so hot on those areas, you can't expect your body, mind included, to put out a good product when being faced by things like anxiety, right? It puts us at a better advantage of doing better for ourselves. Another TV that we did, we were talking about sleep and how sleep is so important. If you don't, and I'm not even gonna, I don't remember the exact, but it's the frontal cortex, and I don't remember if it's the hippocampus or the amygdala. But the frontal cortex is basically the one that controls controls you, right? Is the executive function of the executive function of the brain and of us. And so it regulates our response to situations. So have you noticed that when you don't sleep, then let's say last night you were cramming and the exam is not till next week, but you started cramming because you got a whole semester to pack into 3 days. And so maybe you stay up till like 4 in the morning reviewing the first half of the semester. And You had class this morning, you had work this morning at 8 o'clock. So you got up at 7 o'clock. So you slept 3 hours. I can bet, and it has nothing to do with caffeine. It has nothing to do with your, whatchamacallit, with, well, yeah, with your coffee, whether you had your coffee or not. But I can assure you that you're probably a little bit more on edge. The things that potentially wouldn't have gotten on your, gotten or thrown a wrench into your day, probably did so today. And again, I'm just saying as a general statement. But sleep is of utmost importance. Again, the brain, the frontal cortex, regulates that. What is your response to stimulation, negative and positive? Whether you're going to react in an abrasive and angry or irritable way, or you're going to be like, you know what, whatever, it is what it is. Just keep on chugging along. And last but not least, I already talked about it, but again, I'll mention, talk to your professors. I've had students that come like, hey, Mr. Oz, what's going to be on the exam? I don't go like, you know what's going to be on the exam. Don't ask me. I'm like, hey, yeah, we're going to be, the exam's going to cover, it's probably going to be 4 or 5 questions. They're going to be scenarios. We'll probably just, it's going to be the five disorders we talked about this past week. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's it. We're not gatekeepers as to like, oh no, I'm not going to tell you what's on the exam. That's classified. Ah, man. I'm not going to tell you the answers. I'm not going to tell you the questions, but I'm going to tell you what, Now, if I said it in the lecture like 5 times and you're still asking me, I might get okay, so what did I say is in the exam? Oh, I mean, okay. Well, we're going to be talking about that, so and so. And this would be also the optimal time to be like, hey, you know what? I was going through this the other day. Can you explain this again? Sure. Or you know what? I got another class right now. Send me an email. Maybe we can touch base later. Or in my office hours are at this and this time. How about next time before class, come early, or if you're able to stay a little bit later, I'll make sure I don't have anything, and we'll discuss it. Or you know what? Maybe I'll talk about it in class. Remind me in class, because I'm sure that other people have that same question. So talk to your professors, talk to your faculty members. You'd be surprised that they actually want to talk to you. We like talking. If not, we wouldn't do what we do. Excuse me. All right. So what about right before the exam, right? This could be the day of. Well, like I said, get some good rest. Try and get, and again, for some people, this might mean 8 to 9 hours. Some people, this is 7 hours. Whatever your sweet spot is. Not, oh, I know I can be functional with this amount of hours. No. Not the minimal. No, not the minimum. Do the sweet spot as to like when you're like, oh man, whew, haven't slept like that in 3 years. That kind of sleep. Don't go out there and sleep 16 hours or stuff like that. Whatever your sweet spot is, 7, 8, 9 hours. Try to get to that as best as you can. Eat a good meal. Like I said, avoid caffeine. If you know anything, and obviously caffeine, like any other thing, can affect you differently. But caffeine is in essence, stimulates you, right? It speeds up your heart rate. So if one of the symptoms is rapid heartbeat, and if you chug a venti or a 30 from Starbucks, or good old, I don't know, what is this, like 34 ounces, 42 ounces, whatever the heck this is. If I chug this whole thing before an exam, plus I throw in anxiety on top of that, you're gonna be like one of those little like the Energizer Bunny, but going inside of you, going like So avoid the energy drinks, the ones that it's like 5 ounces, but like 4.9 ounces of it is this pure caffeine that's going to make your heart pop out of your chest. Avoid that stuff. Have a good breakfast, have some huevos con chorizo, have a bagel with cream cheese and some tea or some milk, or whatever a good breakfast means to you. Pack your stuff the night before. There's times, believe me, as a parent, I've found this out. In the morning, if you want to leave at 7:30 in the morning, you better get all your stuff packed the night before. So I leave my bag with my laptop and the keys to my truck clipped onto the side. I pack the baby's bag. All his bottles and diapers and everything are in there. My wife has her bag with her laptop and everything, and we leave it right by the banister of the stairs. So that in the morning, we just gotta get the baby ready, get ourselves ready. Our stuff's already there, and let's go. And even then, we can leave on time. So pack your stuff the night before. That way in the morning, you're not like, where's this? Where's that? Oh my God, I'm gonna be late. And now you're gonna even add more to that anxiety. So again, this is aimed at reducing the anxiety or even trying to avoid the anxiety. Uh, Follow your routine. Now, if your routine in the past caused you anxiety, don't follow your routine. But in essence, what I'm trying to say is whatever route you take to school, take that route. Whatever music you listen to, whatever you might usually have for breakfast. Now, you're like, wait a minute, but you just said have a good meal. I usually don't have a good meal in the mornings. Okay. Again, whatever works for you. Don't try and go out of the routine. If you try taking a new route and there's traffic, there's construction, there's this, that's going to throw a wrench into your plans, right? You might be on time, but now there's the trains passing, there's this truck that is pulling out of this and is blocking the traffic and blah, blah, blah. Keep to what you usually do. Try to arrive early. So again, the importance or the reason for this is to try and avoid things that can cause an issue. If you tend to arrive 5 minutes late to something, and even if you have a 50-minute class, well, if you arrive 5 minutes late, that means the time that you have to take your exam just got cut by 5 minutes. Plus, you still have to walk to class and sit down and get all your stuff. So that could have been 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes that are not taken out of your testing time. So arrive early. That way you can find parking. You don't have to deal with parking. You can walk comfortably to your classroom. You can, you're not stressed. You're chill. If it's at home, people are like, I don't have to worry about that. I bet you do. Have you ever tried taking an exam and the internet goes off, or attend class and the internet goes out? My wife teaches at EPCC as well, and I remember when the pandemic hit and we all went online. Between myself, my wife, and our oldest son that had to do classes, the internet was being sucked dry, man. So there would be times where I had to turn off my camera, she had to turn off her camera because our son had to have his camera on to get credit. But then her students were getting, it was a mess. There'll be times where the internet would cop out because too many people were on it. As I tell my students, don't wait till the last minute. If it's an online exam, don't wait till the last minute. Why? Because if it's through Blackboard, if it's through something through EPCC, well, it's all filtered through our servers. And so if everybody waits till the last minute, which I hope you don't, but let's face it, I just said I do sometimes, so I'm just going to say that we tend to. Everybody's going to jump on at a certain time, and it's going to overwhelm the system. And that's when, oh, Blackboard is down. Oh, but my exam is due like in 3 hours. Oh, you had an entire week and you wait till the last 3 hours. Don't bring it upon yourself. I get it. I know you work. I know you have multiple hats. I know you, but like I tell my son, do what you need to do before what you want to do. Right? I was like, okay, Dad. Yeah, okay, Dad. Rethink anxiety for excitement. In other words, be like, oh man, I'm gonna be so glad when I'm done with this test. Or you know what? That's fine. Let's get this. Be your own cheerleader. Like, all right, I got this. I prepared, I read, I got this. It's cool. Let's knock this sucker out. Instead of like, oh my God, this is gonna suck. This is gonna be great. As much as we talked about how awesome and great our mind is, it's actually rather dumb. in the sense that we can trick it into thinking that we are happy. We can trick it into thinking that we are going to have a good time, that things are going to go well. But the opposite, if you start thinking that it's going to suck and things are not going to go well, guess what? Things are going to suck and things aren't going to go so well. Case in point, if you came into this session and as I started talking, you're like, oh, this guy's going to suck. Guess what? The session probably going to suck. But you're like, all right, let's see what he does say. Let's see. Okay, I probably heard this, but it's an interesting point. It's cool. It's going to go a lot faster for you, right? Look at that. We're almost at 45 minutes. Rather quick. All right. Last but not least, what about when you're there, when you're in the nitty-gritty, right? The rubber hits the road. Well, calm your body. What can you do? Do some breathing exercises. Try to reduce. Now, some people tend to, I don't want to say overdo it, but I don't think some people know how to breathe. You're like, well, duh, it's involuntary. Yeah, true. For my science and biology majors. But when you breathe, what you're trying to do is regulate your heartbeat. And what you want to do is reduce tension. So I don't know if you can see me. I don't know if my little camera is there, but if you can, when you breathe, some people will tell you to create tension and then release it, right? Oh, well, okay, that's good. Hello. But that's one thing. When people do this, right, when they tense up, you go like, and release. So you tense up. That sometimes causes you to take a deep breath because you go, well, that squeezes all the air that you have in your lungs out. So it causes you to take a deep breath. But what I'm talking about, avoid tension, is when you take a breath and then you hold it up here. You're causing tension in your larynx. You're causing tension in your shoulders. And you're now causing more anxiety. Ugh. So what you want to do is one big motion in and straight out. Now, if you go to class next week and you're taking a final and you do that and your professor's like, what the hell are you doing? Say, Mr. Salas over at social work told me to do it. Bring it up to him. I'll take the heat. Tense and release, like I just said. You don't have to be dramatic about it, right? You don't have to be like, because people are going to be like, you okay? You right? Right? It can be discreet. Even stretching, right? Before you get into the test, or if you need to get up, that's fine. I don't have an issue with my students getting up unless they're walking and kind of checking out other stuff. I'm like, you can get up and stretch. I do that at meetings sometimes, especially meetings that could have been taken care of by emails. Maybe that's another TBE talk for later, maybe for faculty and staff and administration. Anywho, sit comfortably. Do you know that studies have shown that if you sit up, it kind of, again, it helps you with concentration, with breathing, because when you're slouched over, it's kind of again, talk about what you're telling your body, what you're thinking. If you're slouching, you're like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. But when you spruce up, you're like, all right, let's do this. Let's knock it out. So sit comfortably. Excuse me. Calm your emotions and your thoughts. Focus on the present. Remember, we talked about one of the causes of test anxiety is thinking about the past of how you've done in previous tests, or thinking about the future, thinking of the consequences, thinking of the pressures and everything that could come from getting a bad grade today. No. Don't think about then. Don't think about later on. Think about right now. Think of the task at hand. Avoid thoughts of the past or the future, just like I said, and positive thoughts. Focus on the task at hand. Just like I said that you can trick your mind into thinking Have positive thoughts. You know what? Let's go, man. I got this. Just one test, one question at a time. One question at a time. Don't even think about the next question. Just knock this one out. And just type write as much as I can about what I know, and we're good. Focus on the task at hand, just like I said. Focus on what you are doing, not others. There are times, and I'll attest to this, that I'll be sitting down and I'll be like, I'm doing good. And that first person gets up to turn the exam and you're like, how the hell did you finish so fast? What the heck? Is it that easy? Why is it taking me so long? Oh my God, am I not doing it? And it just goes on and on. Don't care about other people. Do you, man. Do you. I tell my students, look, guys, we're here for an hour and a half. If you need the hour and a half, go for it. If you need 10 minutes, that's up to you. If you finish early, maybe review it. Go back. But you have all the time. I'm not going to be like, and done. Especially online, right? If your tests aren't timed. Keep realistic expectations. This is going to sound horrible, but look, if you've never gotten 100 on the exam, don't expect 100 this next time. You're like, wow, that's really positive of you. No, it's just, look, if you've gotten A's before, an A is between a 90 and 100, right? An A is an A is an A. That A, when you get that final grade, an A doesn't show that either you got 100 or 110 and 150 with extra credit. An A is an A, no matter what, from a 90 all the way to 100. So you might have worked your booty off to get all hundreds. That person that got 90s the entire way through, they still got the same grade as you did. So again, worry about what you're doing and have realistic expectations. Know that, hey, I'm going to do the best I can. That's cool. Let's go. I'm going to do. I know this is how much I put in, so this is what I got. I got this. Let's go. Remember, be your own cheerleader. Excuse me. Now, let me finish off with just a little bit about self-disclosure. When I took my LMSW, which is my license to be a master social worker, I did not pass the first time I took the exam. Now, the LMSW exam is 170 questions. It's a 3-hour exam, and it costs like $500 to take. And so when you don't pass it, it hurts because you got to pay again to take it again. So I remember before the exam, I went to a test prep that was an entire weekend. It was a Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 5. And they asked you, bring a USB, a large USB, because we're going to give you all this material that's going to help you with the exam. And you're like, all right, man, I got this. Oh, heck yeah. And like, and this is how you should take the exam. You need to take it this way, and you need to do it this way. It's high stakes. That L, without the L, I'm just an MSW. Well, it's still a master's. But without the L, I couldn't be a therapist. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I couldn't even call myself a social worker in the state of Texas. Because without the L, you can just say, I have a master's in social work. With that L, now I'm licensed. Now I am a master social worker. I am a social worker. I can now practice. I can be a therapist. I can treat mental health, substance abuse. So there's high stakes, there's high pressure, there's all these things that we just talked about that can create test anxiety. Well, I didn't pass. But you know what? I wasn't like, oh my God, it's over. I was like, what did I learn from this? Well, I learned that I didn't take the test the way that I take tests, because I paid somebody $200 to give me all this test material, to tell me how to take the test, how to do this, how to do that. And I took my test the way that they told me how to take the test. So as much as it hurt my elbow, I paid my registration and my testing fee again, and I took the test the way that I take tests. The second time, I finished with like 30 minutes to spare. I finished all 170 questions. I got, I think, 120 something right. I passed with flying colors, and I got my LMSW. So what the heck am I trying to say? Well, like 3 wise men. Okay, 2, and the other one's me. Do or do not. There is no try, right? Just do it, man. Just do it. I know we're at like 2 days behind from May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you all, and Revenge of the 5th, and well, I don't think there's a 6th, but anywho, and like Shakespeare, to thy own self be true. What it means is you guys know what works best for you. You know what you need to do. You don't need me to tell you. Now I could have lit some fires. I could have like, ah, that's right. I hope that's it. But all this is hopefully things that, again, it's all about you. And so my parting words of wisdom are best of luck on your finals, guys. And the last thing I want to make sure is remember though, this isn't a cookie cutter thing. It's not that everybody's made the same way. It's not that everything is gonna work for everyone. What I just talked about today, for some of you, it's like, oh man, this is great. This is the best thing since sliced bread. Thank you, sir. For some people, like, I've heard this before. Whoop-de-doo. Thanks a lot. I just wasted an hour of my time. My apologies if that's the case. Excuse me. But hopefully that's not the case, right? But anyways, just know that, and let me leave you with that it is not about, oh, this is what they told me I should do. This is what, no. Take all this as advice. Take it as, okay, maybe I need to rethink the way I take my exam. Maybe I need to rethink and not put so much pressure on myself. Excuse me. And do it the way that best fits you. Because like I said, I paid someone $200 to come in, and obviously, you know, for a group of us, to tell us how to how to take a licensing exam. High stakes, very like high stakes. And even with that, I didn't do well. So I'm not here, even, you know, you're not paying me, but again, I don't have all the answers for you. You have the answers. All these things you can plug and take and do this and do that and modify it. So whatever works best for you. Again, don't take my word as the it all at all whatever. Just if anything, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that I should try doing this and I should try doing that. Let's see if that works for me. Or at least, oh, you know what? Now I understand why I do this, or now I understand why this happens. So hopefully, if anything, that's the takeaway. Or figure out your own way. So as far as the licensing exam, Margaret, I'm not gonna like out her, but she was one of my students. There are so many other ways, and this is for anyone, you know, for any type of exam that you're taking, either a licensing exam, a certification exam, anything and everything. Is it worth paying somebody? It can be, again, as long as you use the information to your benefit. Don't do something because someone told you to do it, or do it a specific way. Now, if at this point in time, you know, whatever you're doing is not really working, I would pay some attention and maybe modify the things that you are doing. But again, my biggest advice is find what works for you and do that. I know it sounds like a cop-out answer, but in reality, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, again, it goes back to that it's not a cookie cutter a thing. You know, what works for the goose doesn't necessarily work for the gander. Presentation is very helpful. Oh, thank you. And so, that's all, folks. And Ms. Gemma and Patricia, I turn it back to you all. Any questions, comments, concerns that you all might have, by all means, please do let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Salas. Again, yet another slam dunk of a presentation. I just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it looks like from the chat, lots of people were saying that it's great advice. So thank you so much for presenting for us today. Were there any questions for Mr. Salas before we let him go?
Before the chain is taken up.
Right, before we're out of here for our weekend. Yes. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close up the session, but of course, if you have any questions while I'm closing up or before we close the room, feel free to post them in the chat or raise your hand. I would like to take a moment and thank Mr. Salas for his wonderful presentation today, as well as I would like to thank the audience for coming and joining us on this wonderful Friday. And we hope you have a great Mother's Day weekend.